So John McCain's funeral happened pretty recently, just a few days ago. And, I wasn't sure I really wanted to do this segment. I hesitated to do this segment. But I do feel compelled to talk about it because, yet again, I think what annoys me is that now you're only allowed to say positive things about him. And you're only allowed to frame the conversation in a way that's 100% anti-Trump and 100% pro-McCain, and they're setting it up as if there's this clear dichotomy. Well, I think it's a false dichotomy. Now, again, as I mentioned in the previous segment I did on John McCain, I don't like speaking ill of the dead. In fact, I hate it because there is something that I find fundamentally inhumane about that. The person's not here to respond. Also, the family is mourning, and you don't want to, say anything that could make them suffer perhaps even more. I also don't wish harm on anybody as a matter of principle. Even if I despise somebody, I don't wish for them to get cancer or die. I mean, that's what kind of a hideous person would I be if that's what I wished for. So I actually despise the people who have gone further than what I think I'm doing. I think I'm doing fair critiques, but I think there are people who have gone further who are like kind of dancing on the grave. And I think that's fucked up. And I think that makes you a pretty shitty person. Despite the fact that John McCain was also, as I'll dive into, not really a good person. Okay, so he had the funeral. Now, the way that this thing was framed, man, it's basically like, let's have a meeting where everybody in the establishment gets together and they rebuke Donald Trump, but they give themselves this immunity shield where now he and the people who are in favor of him are not allowed to strike back because they're able to pull the card of, oh, I was at a funeral. John McCain just died. Have some respect. Don't be tasteless. So in other words, it's perfectly fine to launch political attacks during a funeral when you're there. But if somebody tries to respond to that, oh, have you no decency, sir? So I find it's a really fucking gross game they're playing where they act like they're being above politics and they're not playing politics while they are playing politics, and they've given themselves the shield of, you can't respond because I did this from the pulpit of a funeral. Meghan McCain said a lot of stuff that was deeply political. If anybody dares to disagree with anything she said in that speech, now it's, oh, have you no decency? Her dad just died. So I think that's bullshit. I think that game that they're playing is a clear game, and it's fucked up. And they might not be doing it consciously, but the effect of what they're doing is inarguable. You can't deny that. They're saying all these political things, knowing damn well that if somebody responds, they get to pull the card of, oh, have you no respect? I was at a funeral. These things are not political. We're above politics. But ultimately, it turned out to be a gathering of the establishment. I mean, it was the Washington, D.C. elitist circle that was at McCain's funeral. And it was covered in a way where the media made clear which side they're on, which team they're on. Now, it's crazy because Donald Trump, ultimately, when it comes down to it, is a deep establishment actor. What I mean by that is he's doing the bidding of the establishment. Whether it be, the so-called deep state, the intelligence agencies, the neoconservatives who are in his administration, the Wall Street people who he's serving without a shadow of a doubt. I mean, it's not even close. Look at his tax bill, for example. Look at all the deregulation he's doing. So Donald Trump is serving the establishment. But what have I told you guys a million times? Donald Trump is the establishment plus mean tweets. And what you'll find is Republicans agree with everything he's doing policy-wise, or almost everything he's doing policy-wise, but they save their disdain for when Donald Trump when he deviates from the pageantry of U.S. elitism. So in other words, somebody like Mitt Romney, George W. Bush, even Barack Obama, they go out there and they do this American exceptionalist tap dance bullshit where they act like, oh, this country has higher ideals and ideas that we abide by. We believe in human rights, and we believe in protecting everybody around the world, and we believe in equality and justice. Yes. Yes, we do. But when you look at their actions, that's not true. They don't actually, look, fucking George W. Bush is a war criminal. I mean, the guy, are you kidding me? He started an offensive war against a country that didn't attack us, killed minimum 200,000 civilians, had a torture program. Barack Obama didn't prosecute any of the criminals on Wall Street. He had a drone assassination program, which massacred innocent civilians at a 90% clip. I mean, the idea that, they get to talk about how American exceptionalism is correct and we care about human rights, and that people in the media don't scoff and laugh at it, is crazy. It's fucking crazy. But see, Donald Trump, he's doing all the shit that they were doing, but he doesn't really try to mask it and do the, oh yes, America, we care about all these things. As Michael Tracy put it, Donald Trump has a sort of crude transactionalism about his actions. So in other words, there's not the high, lofty, flowery rhetoric. It's the, other countries are ripping us off. We're going to get them back. That's what we're going to do. And it's like he tries to make it a tit-for-tat type thing, but he drops the pageantry of American elitism and American exceptionalism. They despise that about Donald Trump. They don't want him to keep doing all the shitty policies. But what they don't want him to do is talk the way he talks and do the mean tweets. They want him to act like a statesman, sir. Have you no respect? So, I want to read you some of the things that they said there. Just a few choice quotes here, because this shows you exactly how they were making this political. So, Meghan McCain said the following. We gather here to mourn the passing of American greatness, the real thing, not cheap rhetoric from men who will never come near the sacrifice he gave so willingly, nor the opportunistic appropriation of those who live lives of comfort and privilege while he suffered and served. So it's a clear shot at Donald Trump. Now, if you talk about, hey, man, McCain, he was a war hero because he was captured by the Vietnamese, and then they said, okay, we're going to let you go. And he said, no, I'm going to stay because of the other soldiers. Unless you release them, I don't want to be released. Yeah, that was a heroic action, and Donald Trump was a piece of shit for going after McCain over that specific issue. I mean, that's crazy. But putting that aside, I mean, come on, John McCain never met a war he didn't like. He wanted to offensively attack just a laundry list of countries. And, I mean, the fact of the matter is, his voting record is abysmal, and 83% of the time he agreed with Donald Trump. So, I know it's her father's funeral. I'm not saying that I don't expect her to heap praise on him. Of course I do. But when you frame it as, like you're taking pot shots at the President Trump, while at the same time acting like, oh, well, my father represented real American greatness, not cheap rhetoric from men who will never come near the sacrifice he gave so willingly. I mean, listen, man, the cheap rhetoric really comes from George W. Bush, from John McCain, even from Barack Obama, because they're the people who, while they massacre the civilians and vote for the offensive wars, they're the ones who act like they're not doing that, and they're somehow the upholders of justice around the world. So I take issue with that. I mean, it's a way to try to pretend like Trump is an aberration of American empire as opposed to the logical ends, the culmination of American empire. If everybody votes for these horrendous militaristic, imperialistic policies for so long, but they mask it with the flowery rhetoric, it's only a matter of time until you get somebody who believes in the imperialism and the militarism and doesn't mask it with the flowery rhetoric. So I think the core of my objection is that they act like they're so much better when really the main difference is just they did flowery rhetoric as they massacred civilians. That's the main difference. So I think the part I can't get over is that they act like once you get rid of Trump, then everything's great again. But it's not. When you get rid of Trump, you're still left with the conditions that led to the rise of Trump. A cheap demagogue who was able to win because the establishment was failing people in such a serious, unimaginable, inconceivable way. And they don't reckon with that at all. They don't bother their pretty little minds with that. They're like, no, just get rid of him and everything's great. And then we have the wonderful tradition of the American presidency with people like George W. Bush and Barack Obama and wonderful senators like John McCain. I got news for everybody. Even pre-Trump, you had the Congress and the Senate, their approval rating was like 15%. It's not like before Trump everything was hunky-dory. I'm not saying Trump made it better. He didn't. But I am saying that it wasn't like everything was good before. Here's what Obama said. So much of our politics can seem small and mean and petty, trafficking in bombast and insult, phony controversies and manufactured outrage. It's a politics that pretends to be brave and tough, but is instead born of fear. John called on us to be bigger than that, to be better than that. Today is only one day in all the days that will ever be, but what will happen in all the other days will depend on what you do today. What better way to honor John McCain than follow his example? So, it's okay if you vote for every post-World War II intervention, but just understand that we shouldn't be trafficking in bombast and insult as we do it. So full of shit. That's such a fucking bullshit thing to say. He's bullshitting us. And again, what I can't get over is mainstream media portraying this as if, like, they're not bullshitting us. As if that's not a fucking shitty, dumb thing to say. We're trying to pull the wool over your eyes. I mean, look at the shit that Obama said when he ran against McCain. I agree with that, Obama. That John McCain voted with George W. Bush 90% of the time. The idea that he's somehow better than George W. Bush, above George W. Bush, that he wouldn't be a continuation of his 2 terms, nonsense. Of course he would be. By definition he would be. He votes with him 90% of the time. But now, all of a sudden, oh, he died. Now, I'm only going to say good things about him. And oh, look at how much better he is than the guy who's in the office right now, even though he votes with that guy 83% of the time. But he's not an asshole on Twitter. And that counts for something. And then, here's what George W. Bush said, another subtle shot at Trump. John detested the abuse of power, oh please, and could not abide bigots and swaggering despots. He respected the dignity inherent in every life, a dignity that does not stop at borders and cannot be erased by dictators. John's voice will always come as a whisper over our shoulder. We're better than this. America is better than this. John McCain was the staunchest supporter of Saudi Arabia in the Senate. As Saudi Arabia is carrying out a literal genocide in Yemen, literal, John McCain was the first one to stand up and say, let's give them more money, let's give them more weapons, let's support them. So to make a claim like, oh, he despised dictators and despots, that's beyond laughable. It's stupid, it's incoherent. And George W. Bush saying he detested the abuse of power. He voted for the Patriot Act, which allowed you to do warrantless spying on all Americans. What the fuck do you mean he despised abuse of power? That's utter nonsense. Dude, you waged an offensive war in a country that didn't attack us. You are the abuser of power. So is he. I mean, I can't. The deep hypocrisy of these people drives me nuts. And then all the so-called resistance people on Twitter acting like, these are real American presidents. Decency wins. Jeff Flake tweeted a picture that showed all the living presidents at the funeral. Decency wins. Decency? How many hundreds of thousands of deaths are caused by the 3 presidents who were sitting there? But now you say decency because they're giving flowery words at a funeral? It's just, I'm tired of the pretending, the pageantry and the pretending in U.S. politics. You know, Noam Chomsky said it best. If the Nuremberg laws were upheld, every post-World War II president would be hanged. Now, he's not saying he's for that, but what he's saying is, if we're being objective about the actions of our government, that's true. And the fact that George W. Bush is talking about abuse of power and swaggering despots and, oh, John McCain respected the dignity inherent in every life. He voted for every war! How many innocent civilians died as a result of that? And the thing about whispering over our shoulder, we're better than this, America. We're better than this. Now, why can't we give more money and weapons to Saudi Arabia so they can massacre women and children? We're better than this. They're all so full of shit, and that's what drives me nuts. Trump is terrible. But Trump's mean tweets are not the thing that makes him terrible. The thing that makes him terrible, it's the policies that are destroying lives. Those policies were largely also done by the people who were giving the speeches. And that says everything you need to know about this.